a question.
Yes.
If we are in a time that we can change our genome, do you believe that it's going to have a time when we'll be able to change not only our physical genome, but our emotional and even our spiritual genome?
You know, it's an interesting thing. We think about progress or progression in a linear way. And I think it's more likely that we'll actually change our emotional genome, our spiritual DNA, perhaps before or certainly simultaneous to our, I'm smiling because we have a geneticist over here, before we do or at the same time that we do our physical. What we know is that our genes are liquid pairings, and so they're not frozen. There's something that influences them. Why do two beings who have, let's say, identical genetics over here, why are they different? Why do they look different at all? Why does one have a disease and the other not? Why does one have a different personality or a different perspective? Because there is something within the spiritual DNA that whispers to us and guides the purpose of our lives. The more conscious we are of that, the more we will be able to shed light on the matrix of our, let's say, any constitution that we have, whether it's a physical or an emotional or a spiritual matrix. And so I feel that in a way, we're doing the right thing by recognizing the spiritual genetics and the emotional genetics. There's no question in my mind that when you see, as we talk about heredity, when you see in a family a lineage of disease, for example, if you could look at that from our perspective and say, whatever effect it was on the body, a certain kind of disease, maybe it's a heart disease or it's a cancer disease or diabetes or whatever, the theme behind that will have been carried to the family. And so it's not just some gene connecting to another gene that's doing this. It's actually a vulnerability, shall we say, or an openness within the other levels of our being that allows it to come forward. We don't have to have the diseases of our parents. We don't have to have the diseases of other people. That's why it's been so hard for people working in the environment to get public recognition, because often environmental factors take a long time to show up, and they don't show up 100% of the time. So people can say, well, if it were this, then everyone would get it. No. Just like the streptococcus bacteria we all have in our throats. We get it when life overwhelms us, whether you're a baby child or a person who works too hard, or whether you've been exposed or not exposed. There are many, many factors that influence us. And so the more that we look at humans in recognition of emotional DNA and spiritual DNA, the more we will be able to influence the positive aspects of our physical genetic encoding. Absolutely, and we've come to that. And we are seeing those shadows on the microscopes. We are seeing those whisperings, and it won't be long before we will have the capacity to isolate that and to recognize that is an emotional inheritance, and it's piggybacked in this way. In the same way that when I began to do window to the sky points, which are 4,000 years old, I realized they're not spoken of, that they are formed in a hologram. They are formed in patternings. It's not just stick a needle over here and it'll open a window. It's create a pattern. And once you have the basic recognition of the way they relate to each other, you can make a pattern, and the result of that will be predictable, which was astounding to me that they got that 4,000 years ago. You want to cry? We can stick needles in a certain way that make you cry. You want to see the galactic beings? We can put a pattern in, and pretty much 100% of the people I've put those patterns in, people who never heard the word galactic, will come up with it. And so we do have blueprints. We do have access codes, let's say. And we're beginning to discover those access codes in many, many frontiers in our world today. And we can wield that information. That's the conversation right now. Do we have the right to? Can we trust anybody to do it? And where does personal karma come into play there? Absolutely. We're about to take a catapulted leap at what it is to wear the human body.